Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze how Arsenal can exploit Burnley by highlighting their strengths and weaknesses. So in today's video, first we're going to focus on how Burnley can create chances, then we'll shift to how Arsenal can expose that Burnley backline, and then lastly we'll focus on a potential Arteta starting 11. So when we break it all down and we do look at the board, we're going to first start with Burnley, who should be playing in a 4-4-2, and the only real major change that we could possibly see is in that midfield duo role where we normally have Westwood, Brownhill, or Cork playing in the center of the pitch. There is a chance that Cornet could get a debut out in the wider areas, but if he doesn't, it's most likely that we will see McNeil and Goodmanson. What we end up seeing from Burnley is that it is a traditional 4-4-2, and it does rely on the fullbacks getting forward. We'd see McNeil tucking into pockets of space and in deeper roles in that inside left position. And while Goodmanson can offer a threat from that wide area on the right, Loughton can push forward as well. What we see up front from Wood and Barnes is that they do look to occupy center backs, but it's a traditional strike partnership where if one drops off deeper or one is occupying the center back, the other will be free looking for the pass or looking to break in beyond, and vice versa. They are willing runners and will be looking for long balls over the top into the channels if need be, and at times when they do drop off or when they're backing into defenders to hold them off, they're looking for runs from the four midfielders just in behind them to break forward so that they can link play. Here you can see Wood backing into Diego Llorente with Barnes just ahead of Cooper. And Wood does a very good job of holding off the center back and then looking for the run of Westwood, who's pushing forward beyond Phillips to break in that midfield zone. And then later on, it's Wood backing into Diego Llorente, and you could see Barnes free ahead of the Leeds backline for the layoff. When he plays the ball into the path of Barnes, making a run into the final third, that's where you see Barnes instantly looking to combine with Wood once again. But when Wood receives the ball ahead of the Leeds penalty area, he's looking to pick out an ambitious run from Westwood off of Rodrigo, but his pass is blocked. Apart from the center forward partnership, when they're looking to create chances, if it's from set pieces, specifically corner kicks, they're looking to deliver balls into that 6-yard box where they have players occupying the opposing side's goalkeeper and looking to dominate that 6-yard area to get onto the ball. We've witnessed that in their recent matches against Liverpool, Leeds, and Everton, and that shouldn't be a surprise here against Arsenal given the fact that Tomiyasu and Ben White aren't the strongest aerially. In terms of open play, the key player for Burnley is McNeil. He offers them guile, and if he gets the ball in that inside left position, he's capable of beating defenders, getting himself into good positions, and he's often looking to create for his teammates. Here you can see McNeil picking up the ball towards the inside left channel near the touchline, and he anticipates Alexander-Arnold's challenge, so he steps across him and he ends up carrying the ball down the left channel to pull out Matip, and that allows McNeil to pick out the run of two of his strikers in towards the penalty area, and he delivers the ball into the path of Wood, who backs into Van Dyke, and from here you're expecting him to play the ball off in towards Barnes for a free shot, but Van Dyke's able to poke the ball away. This time we could see McNeil receiving the ball from an inside left position, and he's instantly taking his touch across Jota to break towards the Liverpool midfield. As he looks to approach that midfield bank, what you end up seeing is that the Liverpool shape is tight. You have the midfielders closing in, and you have all four defenders ahead of the Burnley strikers. As McNeil looks to run at Henderson, he plays a first-time ball into Barnes and bypasses Henderson with his running, and you could see that Matip is taken out of position by Barnes, and that's where the 1-2 is played, and from there you're expecting McNeil to potentially slide the ball out wide to Taylor, but he's looking to take a first touch across Alexander-Arnold. If you look into the penalty area, you could see that Wood is making a run across Van Dyke. McNeil carries the ball towards the byline, and before Alexander-Arnold can take a touch, he delivers a first-time ball in towards the 6-yard area, and it falls into the path of Wood, who nods a first-time effort over Van Dyke on goal that Alisson pushes away. The one common theme that we see from Burnley is that they're looking to deliver those deep crosses from their wide players into their center forward targets, and specifically against Everton, who did line up in a 3-4-3, what we ended up seeing was that they looked to push the fullbacks forward to peg back the wide players in Gray and Townsend, and then that's where we ended up seeing McNeil and Goodmanson in those deeper inside left and right positions, looking to get on the ball to deliver deep crosses, and if Taylor or Loughton were able to get on the ball, they were looking to play first-time balls from deeper positions into the penalty area. Here we could see the ball being squared to Westwood from an inside right position, and he's instantly locating the movement of Barnes, making a run across the center back in towards the penalty area, and he delivers a first-time ball into the striker, and from there you see him backing into Cooper and guiding a first-time effort on goal that forces Meslier into a save. From a defensive aspect, Burnley are going to remain in their 4-4-2, and at times they do look to push higher up the pitch with attempts of closing down the opponents in their own third, but it's often unsuccessful unless the opposing side on the ball makes self-inflicted mistakes. What you end up seeing is that they're easily to bypass due to the fact that teams will have 3 men playing in that midfield zone, and while Wood and Barnes can sit in between that player, what often happens is that there are times where Westwood, Brownhill, or Cork will step into that deep liar, but that still leaves a player free, and even if they don't and they have Wood and Barnes dropping off, what ends up happening is that, like we saw against Liverpool, the center forward in Jota could drop off deeper into that midfield area, and then that forces one of the Burnley midfielders to hold their position, and then that's how the opposing side is able to play through that midfield press. Here you can see Burnley's press in full effect with McNeil stepping towards Alexander-Arnold, and you have Brownhill tracking the movement of Elliott. But because Liverpool have a 3v2 in that midfield zone, Henderson drops in between the strikers to make it 3v2. Alexander-Arnold notifies that, and he slides the ball across McNeil into the path of Henderson. When Henderson receives the ball, you could see a Burnley striker looking to close him down, but at that moment he's instantly looking to slide the ball out to Elliott, continuing his run towards the touchline, and that's away from Brownhill, but you could see that overload being placed because you have Jota dropping into that midfield zone to occupy Cork. And then if we look to another example, once again it's Alexander-Arnold, this time sliding the ball across Goodmanson, and it falls into the path of Jota, who's free to drop in between Brownhill and Cork, because Brownhill's being taken out of the game by Elliott, and Cork now is looking to drop deeper to shift away from Keita. Leeds ended up playing in a 3-man backline, and what ended up happening was that although you can't have McNeil or Goodmanson stepping forward to close down the spare center back, there were times where they didn't, and what we ended up seeing was that the wide center back would look to play the ball around the center forward into the midfield gap, and it was specifically Diego Llorente who on 2 occasions slid the ball across Barnes and Brownhill, and he was able to find Rodrigo in between the lines. And then the other alternative that opposing sides do look to utilize is by playing long diagonal balls out into the wider areas. Liverpool were doing that by getting Elliott and Salah into those wider positions, and teams just simply look to bypass that front 6 to play in their attacking players in between the lines. Here's an example of Burnley's high press from a Liverpool goal kick, and you can see their front 4 closing down Liverpool's back 4, with Cork stepping towards Thiago, dropping in towards his own penalty area, and Henderson slightly free, but Alisson simply bypasses that press with a long ball over the top into the path of Elliott. This time you can see Ayling punting the ball over the Burnley midfield bank, and it falls into the path of Rodrigo, free in a pocket of space just ahead of Loughton. Rodrigo ends up sliding the ball across Loughton to play in Harrison, who does break forward down the left channel, and as Harrison gets towards the Burnley penalty area, you could see Rodrigo continuing his run to join the attack with Bamford, but that delivery into the penalty area is cleared. The other issue that Burnley often encounter in their 4-4-2 out of possession is if wide players look to shift laterally into those central positions to create overloads. In the games against Everton and Leeds, we witnessed Rafinha and we also saw Gray shifting into those central positions to receive the ball, and because Westwood and Brownhill are often caught higher up the pitch or focused on their midfield markers, if those fullbacks don't stick tight, they were able to get on the ball and then run at the Burnley backline. Here you can see Ayling picking up the ball in his own half, and he locates Rafinha making a lateral run from the touchline to get into a position behind the Burnley midfield duo. As Ayling continues forward, he ends up playing a pass across Brownhill for Rafinha between the lines, and that results in Rafinha breaking towards the Burnley backline. And from here you have Bamford making a run in between Loughton and Tarkowski, and he should be playing the ball ball to an unmarked Harrison as Loughton is caught central. However, he attempts to play the ball into the path of Bamford, but Taylor does a very good job of making a last-ditch tackle to halt the attack. Here you can see Doucouré ahead of the Burnley midfield bank, and he's looking to square the ball towards his left to an unmarked Andre Gomes, and you could see Gray shifting laterally into the halfway circle away from Loughton. When Gomes receives the ball, he is closed down by Lennon, but he plays a first-time pass into the path of Gray, who now has the freedom to receive the ball and then run at the Burnley backline. And then finally, along with midfield overloads, Burnley struggle with midfield runners. Even before Rafa Benitez shifted to a 4-3-3 in possession, we witnessed a chance in that opening half where Doucouré just simply pushed forward into the half space to help Everton create a chance. The problem that they encountered in that game was that Alan and Doucouré were often caught too deep and the wider players were pegged back. But once they shifted to a 4-3-3, they have that 3v2 overload in those central areas. And that's where we ended up seeing Doucouré and Andre Gomes making runs forward. But more importantly, what we ended up seeing is that if you can have runners from those deeper midfield positions breaking beyond Westwood, Brownhill, or Cork, then that's where Burnley looks susceptible to quick breaks, and we witnessed this on several occasions in their opening 4 games. If we look to another example, this time it's Leeds breaking out of their own half through Phillips, and when he lays the ball off to his teammate, he's instantly making a run in between Loughton and Westwood, and the ball is being shifted out into the wide area for Harrison. As Harrison receives the ball in the left channel, you could see Phillips continuing his run beyond the Burnley half to break into their third. That results in Harrison playing the ball into the path of Phillips to receive the ball in the left channel, and from here he's just ahead of Taylor and he's locating Bamford, making a free run into the box. But when he plays the ball into Bamford from this position, he should be getting a shot on goal, but his first touch is heavy and that halts the attack. In the build up to Everton's third goal, you could see that they're breaking down the right channel through Doucouré, but focus on the positioning of the Burnley midfield duo and then focus on Gray. As Doucouré carries that ball towards the halfway line, you can see that Tarkowski makes another mistake by being dragged in towards that area by Richarlison. And what happens is that because neither of the Burnley midfield duo is tracking the movement of Gray, all Doucouré has to do is play the ball across Tarkowski into that large gap of space for Gray to break free on goal, and he does that well. And as you can see, Gray receives the ball between Tarkowski and Loughton. He's able to speed towards the penalty area and put Everton up 3-1. Therefore, when you question how Arsenal should set up, there shouldn't be any drastic changes from last week's win against Norwich. While there have been hopes that Arsenal could shift to a 4-3-3 here, they don't even necessarily need to do that. They could stick with their 4-2-3-1 that eventually shifts to more of a 2-3-5 or a 3-2-5. And what you could see here is that if you have Tomiyasu, Ben White, and Gabriel deeper in those wider positions, they could have the center back stretch out. Then you have 3 passers that are capable of playing on the outside of Wood and Barnes, and that can look to bypass that midfield bank to find runners in between the lines. If Thomas Partey is fit, you would expect him to start with Lokonga, and then those two can take turns in making midfield runs if required. If they're looking to bypass that front 6 on the ground, one of Thomas Partey or Lokonga could drop off deeper, and then you would expect the other player to receive the ball in space in the left half space to ensure that Tierney can bomb forward. The only key question here is who's going to start in those attacking 3 positions. Now, it would make sense for Odegaard to maintain his position in that number 10 role, as he did create overloads with Bukayo Saka in their previous win against Norwich, and that was successful in that opening half. But the key call here for Arteta is out on that right-hand side, where it can be Pepe or Saka. Arsenal generally get their width down the left-hand side from Tierney, so with Smith Rowe dropping off deeper, that helps create an overload. It could pull out Loughton, and then that forces Goodmanson to track back and peg him back deeper unless he doesn't, and then that allows Tierney to be a threat down that left-hand side. Now on the right-hand side, a lot of people are calling for Pepe to start due to the fact that he was on the ball on several occasions and he was involved in the goal to win last week's game, but he struggled 1v1 against Brandon Williams. And in Taylor, what we end up seeing is that if you push him to the byline, Taylor can do a very good job, and he has been successful against Townsend, Rafinha, and Mo Salah. But if you can shift central and break into those areas, then he really struggles to have an impact on the game. And while you do expect Nicolas Pepe to be capable of doing that, we haven't seen it on a consistent basis. So if you have Saka starting from that right-hand side, you can have him dropping off into that midfield zone to create overloads that were successful with Odegaard. And then if he picks up the ball in those deeper positions, he can offer a similar threat by driving forward in those central areas to look to play an Aubameyang or to present a goal threat. So as you can see, while Burnley can present issues to Arteta's side, a combination of midfield running, overloads, and efficiency in the final third should be enough to claim maximum points.